Hi guys, this is me again. I'm not sure whether it's running or not. It always takes a little bit longer to see something. I hope some of you will have the time to watch because today I have a very exciting topic to discuss, which is how are our beliefs actually structured? So what makes us believe in something that is limiting us in some way, and how is it created and how is that maintained? And in the second part, there's something I've discovered this week actually fully, and that pain has a totally different message than what we think it has for us. And if you start looking at pain in a different way, you get a chance to resolve it for yourself. So, with this in mind, the last video about the beliefs and how it's always risky to change yourself because you could prove to yourself that you can't do it. You could prove to yourself that you're not capable of doing it. That risk is always there. So it is important to realize that whenever somebody comes to you for help, whenever somebody wants to become different, that they are afraid of that possibility. And it's important to take care of that possibility so that people feel safe. And in the same way, it is also absolutely okay to have that concern. It is absolutely fine to have that fear and that worry when it comes to allowing yourself to be totally different. And what I've realized is when we look at the structure of how beliefs are created and how they're maintained, it allows us the opportunity to start resolving it in a healthy way for ourselves. I would like to use that example of the flies again. So we have the flies in the jar who learn that there's a limitation of their new environment, and at some point when that limitation is resolved, they don't question it anymore. So they live that belief of that environment rather the actual environment. And I'm quite happy that there are a few viewers today. I'm hoping that this time will be slightly better. So hello everybody. For the guys who are watching, I'm still trying to figure out how it works to also see potential comments. But yeah, so we have the flies in the jar. And how is that belief maintained? Now, first of all, the important part to realize is every belief comes from reality. It is not us misinterpreting something. It is not us misexperiencing something. A belief is created based on fact. So the fact that you might believe something silly in the sense of that you're not good enough, or that you're stupid, or that you're, I don't know, not worth being loved, all them things come from an actual experience that happened to you at some point in your life. It's typically happened to us when we were so young that we even forgot about it. So we still live our life based on that belief, but we don't even remember anymore what the reason was that made us believe that in the first place. So the first step is always the initial experience that creates something. Now that something that is being created is an expectation. So when the flies are in the jar and they hit the wall, they suddenly realize, okay, I'm hitting something, so there must be something. And so from the initial experience that causes an expectation, we then go into the phase of confirmation of what we expect. So then the flies suddenly realize, okay, every time I hit against the wall, there must be something. So then they start to expect it. So they go towards the wall and expect it to be there. And then the important part is they find proof of that. And the proof, again, is real. The proof of the expectation comes from the reality, comes from their experience to expect a wall and to feel, yeah, that is a wall. And so therefore, that initial belief and that expectation is confirmed. It's proven to the flies and to ourselves that we are a certain way. And that is important to realize. I would say every belief, but probably most of them, that we experience nowadays are a confirmation of a certain expectation we have about ourselves, about life, about our friends, about people around us, about things in general. So it's not that a belief for us is being created, it has been created in the past, and now it's just being confirmed over and over and over again. So the risk that you run is not to create an unpleasant belief, it's to realize that that belief could be confirmed again. And this is really the structure of it. And when you think about it from an energy efficiency point of view, to learn something new, to realize that there is a wall when there isn't one, is quite an intense process. And so over time, once you've tested often enough, you don't need to test anymore. So that testing phase is much more energy efficient, so that at some point we start living life based on expectations, not based on facts. So what we expect for us that we're capable of, we live a life like that. And so what happens with that is a lot of people experience pain, like emotional pain, and they honestly feel it within their bodies. And that prevents them from doing certain things. For example, I have people who would like to lose weight, but the idea or the pain of potentially proving to themselves that they're not capable of losing the weight, or maybe that that they're a failure, so proving to themselves that they can fail, that pain is so intense that they fear to even try. So the worst thing that can happen is you just give up on things and just stay where you are and don't bother with all the beautiful things, all the beautiful possibilities that you could have. And this week I realized there's always something about pleasure and pain and the motivation, that we always want the good things, we always strive towards pleasure, and we always avoid the pain. And from that experience, we kind of created the idea that every time something is painful, especially emotionally, that this is not something that we want in life. So we're trying to avoid pain and we're trying to go towards pleasure overall. And this week, and it was again for the first time that I realized it, I had a session with a client who was thinking of herself in that case, that she is a failure, that she's not capable to commit to certain things. And not being able to commit to something, what you started, was very, very painful for her. And when we've gone through the process, when we started addressing the belief and started addressing the pain, and finally got to the stage where the pain was resolved, something interesting happens. The person still doesn't want to not be committed. So she still didn't like the idea of starting something and not sticking to it, which is fine. However, it didn't make her feel in pain anymore to think of herself as being potentially that person. And that's what it occurred to me. There are so many things in my life that I don't feel like doing. For example, I don't necessarily want to be a fireman. I know it's an impressive job, and I'm very proud of everybody who is willing to do it, but I just don't get anything out of it. In the same way, I wouldn't want to be a lawyer. I wouldn't want to be a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon. There's nothing to it that gives me anything. However, I don't feel any pain when I think of myself as being a fireman or a surgeon or a lawyer. It doesn't cause me emotional pain. So me knowing that this is something that I don't want doesn't necessarily make me feel any pain. Whereas when we think of ourselves as not being good enough, or being overweight, or not being able to stop smoking, the idea of trying and failing is causing us pain. So then we think, we feel the pain because we don't want it. But the true meaning of pain is a different one. The meaning of pain is not to tell us what we don't want, because when we resolve the pain, we already know it. We don't need the pain to remind us. And I believe everybody who's watching this will have an experience where they know that they don't want something and it doesn't give them any emotional struggle. However, they also have the experience where they don't want something and it hurts them, and possibly a lot. So it's not the not wanting that decides whether you have the pain or not. The pain has a different message for you. And the real message of pain is to pay attention. Because emotions in general are a communication between our body and our mind. This is how we make sure we can, deal with reality and don't make silly things like, leaving our hand in the fireplace. So emotions is a very, very important message from our body to us, to our mind, if you will. And pain, in that sense, is a message to start focusing on it. But start focusing on it not in a way that is hateful, discriminating, and aggressive, and frustrating, and angry. Focusing on it in such a way that is willing and patient and curious and kind to actually understand what is being communicated. So when you allow yourself to think of something unpleasant and you feel the message, I invite you to just notice that sensation. Feel it in your body and notice what happens to it. Now, there is a likelihood that initially the intensity of the pain will increase. And that is because you finally start paying attention to it. But eventually what happens, and everybody who's done sessions with me has experienced it, and so they will understand what it means. But for people who haven't experienced it, that may sound crazy. But what really happens when you pay attention to pain is you allow that charge, that electromagnetic or chemical charge, whatever it is, to release from your system. It never releases when you move away. It never releases when you're aggressive towards it, when you're attacking it with your attention. However, if you allow that pain to exist, and if you just pay attention to it and notice how it feels and where you feel it, there comes a crazy experience where you just notice the intensity reducing. And depending on how big the problem is, depending on the emotional challenges and difficulties that you've had as a result of that pain, it can take longer and it can be more intense. But ultimately, pain is not there to tell you what you don't want. You already know what you don't want. You don't need pain on top of that. Pain is only there to remind you what hasn't healed emotionally inside you, what you haven't released from your system yet. So that every time you feel something that you don't appreciate, that you don't want in your life, allow yourself to pause and pay attention to it. And just patiently notice what will happen with it. And I would really like to hear your experience of that video and your experience of them ideas. Whether you've tried it and it doesn't work, or whether you've tried it and in a crazy way the pain just disappeared, or whether you don't want to try because it's too intense for you. It doesn't matter. I would really appreciate your feedback, your ideas, because it's not important about what I'm talking about. It's important about what is the message that you actually receive. So please like the video, please share it, and I really appreciate everybody who's watching and everybody who's willing to contribute to all of this. And I'm hoping it can be spread around even further. So with your help, with your ability to like and share, Facebook starts spreading the video amongst other people, and I'd greatly appreciate that. And with that in mind, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next I Think series. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Bye bye.